As we approach the 2024 college football season, there have been a ton of changes to the sport as a whole. The transfer portal, the coaching carousel, and NIL have really changed the game, and there's one school in my opinion that actually could take advantage of this. Not only did they get a great new head coach, but they completely flipped the roster in the portal, have taken a new attitude, and it looks like the school is finally investing in football. The secret team that nobody's going to want to play in 2024 to me is the Indiana Hoosiers. Call me crazy, but I think Indiana is going to have a really good season, and I really like what they are building in Bloomington, Indiana. In today's video, we're going to talk about the new look Indiana Hoosiers. We're going to talk about why their new head coach is changing things, the players that are going to make an impact this upcoming fall, and why as a whole, I think it's going to be somewhat scary to play them and they could be a legitimate threat. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about the rise of Indiana football. Just a few years ago, Indiana football was near the top of the world. Kane Womack was their defensive coordinator, Kalen DeBoer was their offensive coordinator, and they even had Michael Penix on the roster. Things reached a point of hysteria when Michael Penix had that 2-point conversion against Penn State, and at one point, Indiana actually had a chance to make the playoff. There's a graphic that I can't find, but at one point, the Hoosiers had a legit shot at making the 4-team playoff in 2020 before they ultimately lost to Ohio State and then would end up missing out. A few years ago, it looked like Tom Allen was building something special, but as quickly as it all rose, it fell apart. After being preseason ranked for the first time in what seemed like decades, the Hoosiers fell apart immediately, getting blown out by Iowa in an embarrassing fashion, and Michael Penix Jr. struggled, the team fell apart, and they had one of the worst years in a long time. Things did not get really any better in 2022, and after that hot start, and after all of the LEO madness, Tom Allen was fired, and he is now the defensive coordinator for Penn State. He just could not get it done in 2021, 2022, or 2023, and now the Hoosiers will move into a new direction. One of the reasons why Indiana I think is a lot different now is because of their new coaching staff. They brought in Curt Cignetti, who has won literally everywhere. He has taken bad programs and made them good. He turned James Madison into a juggernaut, and honestly the Dukes had the best transition from FCS to FBS I have ever seen. They were an immediate contender, and that is all because of Coach Sig. He has already changed the game in Bloomington, as he is expecting to win right away, has a no-nonsense approach to the game, and has players buying in. Another coach that I really like is Tino Sunseri, as he spent a lot of time at Alabama, and he's currently the quarterback's coach and is helping out with the offense. He is seen as one of the best young recruiters in college football, and is sort of a quarterback guru. He's been recruiting at a high level, and just overall, the culture around Indiana football is changing. It looks like things are going into a new direction, and then after that, there are two reasons why I think they're a team nobody wants to play. One, because they're going under the radar. Nobody really thinks about Indiana football anymore. They had their couple months of success in 2020, and everyone just thinks that they're going to go back to being a bottom dweller. They're going to catch some teams by surprise, and when people look at their schedule and see the Hoosiers on the slate, they're not going to think of anything, and honestly, that's the best case for them. They're a team that's going to go under the radar, and they're going to fight hard each and every week. The third reason why they're a team nobody wants to play is because of the new players they have on the team. For example, I don't know if Indiana has had a quarterback room that is this talented ever. Their third-string quarterback is Taven Jackson, who was a 4-star recruit who went from Tennessee. Their second-string quarterback was a top 10 quarterback recruit in the class of 2024 in Tyler Cherry. And then they brought in Curtis Rourke, who is one of the best quarterbacks in Ohio football history. They are literally 3 deep at the quarterback position, and Curtis Rourke has a ton of experience, and to me looks like one of those quarterbacks that's going to come out of nowhere and surprise a lot of people. When you look at transfer portal quarterback rankings, he is nowhere to be found, but honestly, he deserves a lot more credit. Curtis Rourke is the epitome of the roster flip that Cignetti pulled off. He said, quote, "I'm not looking to get any third stringers." He was trying to get talent everywhere, and the Hoosiers brought in the number 28 transfer portal class, which is just absolutely loaded with talent from top to bottom. There were 31 total transfers, and I just don't have enough time to go through each and every one of them, but a lot of these guys were either under-recruited, have gone under the radar, or are playing with a chip on their shoulder. A lot of them are coming from smaller schools, some are coming from JMU, and some are on their second or third destination. A lot of them are ready to play right away, and there is competition literally everywhere on the roster, and as we all know, that breeds talent. I don't think a position epitomizes that more than the running back position, as right now they'll have Kalen Black, Justin Ellison, and Tyson Lawton. The Hoosiers also got Solomon Van Horst, Elijah Green, and they brought in a really good high school running back by the name of Kobe Martin. It seems like the Hoosiers are going to line up with 5 running backs who can contribute. And then we get to the wide receiver spot, which I'm also extremely excited for. I made a video a couple weeks ago talking about 20 breakout players, and Donovan McCulley is one of them. After becoming a 4-star quarterback recruit in the class of 2022, McCulley switched to receiver and has NFL written all over him. He could have transferred to a big-time program, but decided to stay back, and he'll probably be an 1,000-yard receiver and a 10-plus touchdown type of player. You're also going to have Miles Price and Elijah Surratt, who've played a lot of snaps, and then you'll have former Clemson guy E.J. Williams, you'll have talented transfer Miles Cross, and former blue-chip recruit Omar Cooper Jr. There is a lot to like about that wide receiver spot, and then at the tight end spot, you're going to have Zach Horton, who I'm unbelievably excited for as well. At left tackle, you bring back Carter Smith, who almost transferred away to Miami. At left guard, you'll have Tyler Stevens. At center, you'll have Mike Kadich. At right guard, you'll have Nick Kidwell, and at right tackle, you'll have Trey Wettig. The offensive line has been a struggle for Indiana the last 2 or 3 years, but right away, I think the unit's going to be much improved. Coach Sig has a no-nonsense type of approach. I know I said a lot of names that probably don't mean anything, but the point is, Indiana flipped their entire roster, everything is new, and in my opinion, they have a lot of talent at the right positions. The offensive line should be much improved. They have 5 different running backs, they have a couple of receivers who are both highly recruited and have NFL potential, and then they have an experienced quarterback. There's a lot to like there, and while the defensive side of the ball need to be worked out, Indiana's defense has actually not been the problem the last few years either. When you take a look at the Hoosiers' schedule, there is a path to bowl eligibility in year 1, and they could surprise some teams. In week 1, they play against Florida International, who, no offense, is not very good, and Indiana should win that game pretty easily. In week 2, they're going to play against Western Illinois, who I don't believe has won a game in 2 years, and they're also an FCS school, so there's no reason why Indiana will not be 2-0. They'll go on the road to play against UCLA, and this game in my eyes is actually a swing game. UCLA has a new head coach, they have a depleted roster, and I'm also just not very high on them. Ultimately, I think UCLA probably wins by a touchdown, but I do think Indiana has the ability to win that game. Luckily, they will come home and then play against Charlotte, and that will be their 3rd win, and then they also host Maryland at home. While for some reason the Terps have given Indiana a lot of problems, I do not like this Maryland team at all, and I think Indiana actually wins that game and gets to 4-1. I know by no means that they play a juggernaut schedule, but 4-1 would be a great start for Coach Sig. After that, they'll go on the road to play against Northwestern, and this is a really difficult game to pick. Northwestern had a breakout season in year 1 under head coach David Braun, and they're going to be really tough. But honestly, I think Indiana could be the Northwestern of 2024, and I think the Cats are going to fall off a little bit. Ultimately, I'm going to pick Northwestern to win by a touchdown, but that game could also go either way. After that, they're going to come home and play against Nebraska, and until Matt Rule and the Huskers actually prove they can win games, I'm not going to pick them to win. I think Indiana's going to pull this one off, and that'll get them to their 5th win in just mid-October. After that, though, the schedule will get a little bit more difficult, as they will then host Washington. The Huskies lost pretty much every talented player on the roster, but Coach Jed Fish did a great job at Arizona, so I expect him to have Washington competing in year 1. This is another game that I think could go either way, but ultimately, I'm actually going to pick the Hoosiers in this one. I think that gets them to their 6th win, and at this point, they will be 6-2 going into their final 4-game stretch. Unfortunately, it's going to be kind of difficult, as at first they go on the road to Michigan State. While Jonathan Smith has a lot to figure out for the Spartans, I think Michigan State is also a 6 or 7 win team, and because this game's at home, I'm going to pick Sparty to win. After that, they'll play Michigan at home, and there's no way Indiana competes in that one, and then they go on the road to Ohio State, where they will also get obliterated. At this point, they will be 6-3 going into their final game against Purdue, and I'm not really that high on the Boilermakers either. Ryan Walters really has to prove it, and I'm not super sold on Hudson Card. I'm going to give Indiana the benefit of the doubt, and I say because they're at home, they beat Purdue, and they end up going 7-5 in year 1 under Coach Sig. They'd end up also going to a mediocre bowl game with a chance to get to an 8th win. Honestly, things line up for Indiana to have a complete rebuild and to flip the record. The last few years, Indiana has been haunted by underachievement, but I think in year 1, Coach Sig is going to have them figured out, and hopefully we'll have them recruiting at a high level. Maybe all this is just complete rubbish, but I do think Coach Sig is going to turn around the Indiana program, get them going in the right direction, and maybe the Hoosiers will become a 2nd-tier program in the next few years. We'll just have to wait and see though, but what do you guys think? If you're an Indiana fan, what do you think of this year's team? If you're a general college football fan, what do you think of Coach Sig and what the Hoosiers are building? And also be sure to let me know another team I can preview or talk about next. Also, before you go, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.